and welcome to Sci-Fi. Christian, I'm Ben DeBono.
And I'm Ben Kirkwald.
We were off last week because my wife was busy having a baby.
No excuses.
No excuses. But, yeah, we don't spend a lot of time on last week's episode. We had said maybe we'd because I told you guys that there was going to be a week I was probably going to be off. Maybe we'd try and get together and record it. But, man, just not a great episode last week.
It wasn't worth getting together.
It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
It was,
we could have made time this week, but we just didn't want to.
Yeah, it was just not a good episode. So if we have to miss
I would
one,
call it, it's not even that it was a filler episode, like we were setting up pieces for things, except for the Dany scene at the end. There was the Tyrion scene. Yeah, I mean, the Arya stuff was good, and I'm sure we'll see her.
The Hound was good, but you know, it was, and we've talked about this a little bit already, so I'll be repeating what I've already said to you, but it was essentially we ran out of money this season episode. You know, why does Dany walk into a room instead of ride in on her dragon? Well, because of everything you saw this week. It cost a lot.
Holy
yeah,
crap.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, during that dragon scene, I said, well, this is why last week sucked.
Right? I wasn't sure we were going to see the dragon this week either when they were just like, we just heard the pitter-patter on the outside roof, kind of. I was like, oh, are we actually going to see it? But we did, so that's good.
We most definitely did. So, yeah, I don't think we need to dwell on last week because we've got plenty to talk about this week. But first, you brought the beer this week. You've had this one before.
So I've had this. This is Against the Grain Brewery. I believe it's out of Denver, Colorado.
They all are.
It's called 35K, and it's really good. It's a imperial. It's not imperial. It's just a stout, and I really like it. It's nice and thick, and it's got a full-bodied flavor to it. A nice creamy head for the most part.
Yeah.
And every can foams over just a touch. So
you gotta love that.
If you do get these at the liquor store, just be aware that it foams over every time. It's not you. It's the beer.
It's the beer. So before I'm waiting for the head to die down. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah.
To both of us. And
yeah.
I gotta show you this because I got a text from my friend Dave who watches the show, so I know he's watching, and we'll appreciate this here. And I'm just gonna show you his Father's Day present that he got. Well, he got some beer, and that was good.
Right.
But then he also got
a Mr. Beer kit.
A Mr. Beer
yes.
kit. So my advice to Dave, and I'll tell you this right here again, is that I told him I recommend skipping the Cerveza kit.
No. I disagree. Dave, you need to get the Cerveza kit because then we can try a fresh batch next season.
Oh, yeah, he can mail us
some. So we've got 2 seasons left where we could have one and then one aged so that we don't have to drink the swill that you were trying to pun off.
I think side-by-side comparison if we do that.
I think we'll smell one and taste one.
That's true. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of tasting going on. All right, so let me give this a try. Yeah, that is good. I feel like not overbearing stouts has been the theme of our beer this season.
Yeah, it really has.
Yeah, and this is another one that's kind of right in there.
Yeah.
It actually does remind me of that brown stout that we had from Bent Distillery a few weeks ago.
Yeah, you're right. A little bit,
yeah.
Absolutely.
It might be a little darker, but yeah, same kind of deal where it's just not overpowering. So, yeah, this is good. Did you find this at your place in Osseo?
The premium liquor in Osseo. They have a whole section of their store dedicated to craft brew. So, and it's nice.
Yeah, because I haven't seen this at Rum River, so.
Wow, one time.
One time. I think I found one.
Thank God.
Yes. All right. And we still made it over to Tobacco Grove, so we're still smoking the same stuff. Maybe this week. Yeah.
I'm off on Wednesday.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Maybe, maybe we'll come over to you guys. I'll have to talk to Annie about it, but we could come over to you guys. The ladies can visit. And
we'll go to Tobacco Grove.
Grove.
This could happen. All right.
All right. So here's what I'm thinking. We only had 2 places. We had Meereen and we had the North.
We should start with the North and then move to Meereen.
Exactly. No, let's do the opposite of that.
All right.
Okay, so Meereen has been so boring this season. They somehow... If you had told me before this season started that Tyrion is going to suck, but the season is still going to be pretty good, I wouldn't have believed you.
No, because he has, was it last season? Or his speech was last season?
2 seasons
ago.
2
seasons ago. He made that season. Mm-hmm. Like, it was him. He was the person pulling the rest of the whole cast along. And this season, he's just kind of been this minor character.
Just sitting and drinking wine with
right.
Miss Sandy and Grey Worm. And did you know they don't have the same sense of humor? I don't know if you got that this season, that they don't have the same sense of humor.
They have nothing in common.
Yeah, right. We only had to have 20 different scenes to show us that. Hey, would you mind letting my dog out? I'm kind of trapped here by the microphone. Sure. Come on. So, yeah, but finally we get... It was just so refreshing, that first scene even, where Tyrion and Dany are talking, because it's like, okay, thank you. This is finally
well, at least there's something going on. Well, yeah. But you know what? Reflecting back, now that clearly Dany's going to be moving on to bigger and better things, I think they did a pretty decent job of depicting for the viewers of the show how awful a place Meereen is.
Yeah, that's true.
They did do that.
You didn't get the full effect from book 5.
Right. But you understand now that this is a boring place, and this is not where anybody belongs, and we need to move on. Mm-hmm. And everybody felt that at the beginning of the season, and then you got a whole season's worth of more of that. Mm-hmm. So we should all feel satisfied with...
It feels like they're about to go. Like they got their tickets.
Right.
They're about to go.
They got the ships. We're good to go. It'll be interesting in the books, just for book readers and aside, how the book portrays this, because obviously Aisha or whatever Yara, whatever her name is in the show, is coming here, but she's not in the show. It's Euron in the show that's going to be coming for her, and so it'll be interesting how that whole dynamic plays out, if she just talks her way out of it or whatever. But
right, so there's going to be some differences, but
right.
I'm satisfied with where it seems like we're at.
Yeah.
I mean, there can't be possibly anything else for them to do in Meereen.
No.
They have, like you said, they have the ships. I think Euron shows up next week. We deal with him, and we're on our way to Westeros.
Last scene of this season is going to be her flying off on the dragon.
Oh, let's hope so. Because, it's time to leave. It's time to leave.
It was time to leave 10 years ago, George R. R. Martin.
That's right. But yeah, what a great, all that bitching aside, if we had to stay there, I'm glad we stayed for this, because that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, they did a lot of things that were just like, really, they just broke out of the side of their cage, like they couldn't have done that 1,000 times before then, but...
Well, I mean, you did have that set up a little bit, because you had Tyrion earlier who undid their chains. And so I guess I could kind of buy that they were just kind of hanging out there until Big Dragon, or I always forget which dragon Drogon is. He flies up and he's kind of the ringleader. And so I could kind of buy that. But yeah, I mean, it was a cool moment anyway.
Right. It was really, that whole scene was really cool. And
then you're like, oh no, she's burning the ships! Crap! No! And then
we only burned 2. All right. Well, if we only burned 2,
we can deal with that.
Jeez.
But for a second, it was like, this is not good. It's like the Third Fleet comes to Meereen and just burns. This has happened so many times. We need boats, damn it! We need boats. Nobody realized this. And the execution of the 2 masters was pretty great. It's like, for as much as I was talking about Tyrion, it's such a relief to have him out of that room with Missandei and Grey Worm. It was a relief to have Grey Worm out of that room and have him actually doing something.
Right.
Just, wow. It's like, could you have... I mean, I don't really care about Missandei that much, but the other 2 are such good characters, and it just made them so dull, and finally.
Right.
Finally. And then the Dothraki charge in. You can't forget that.
I had forgotten that they were a part of her army at that point.
She didn't need them, but they were pretty cool.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing at this point, is that it does kind of feel like Dany could just conquer the 7 kingdoms, or 6, I guess, now that she's given the Iron Islands back, with just the 3 dragons if she wanted to. But, it was a great moment.
That'll be an interesting dynamic to play out when she gets over there, depending on when she's going to take over, assuming that she takes over the Iron Throne, where, all right, so now I'm releasing this kingdom, and I feel like Dorne has the most right to come back and say, we've almost been a separate kingdom for forever, and how that whole...
Well, and the North, and...
Right, well, how that whole politics game is really going to span out. I mean, are we going to end up at the end of the last season here with 7 different kingdoms instead of ruling over all of them? We're just going to have 7 different ones?
Right.
Or...
Yeah, I mean...
Who's gonna hate her because of the decision that she just made?
Well, and I feel like Tyrion's warning to her is going to come back to haunt her. And, especially, I know we're going to get to the North, but after this episode... The North is essentially independent again. I mean, let's remember that Robb declared independence, and they became their own kingdom, and the only reason they were back in the gang was because the Boltons were in charge.
Right.
House Stark is back in charge. We'll see how all the politics of that shakes out if Jon declares himself king or whatever.
Well, because now the Vale isn't really a part of the North either, and so how's that going to work? And
exactly. Yeah, so there's definitely...
Right. We're going to be back to the political maneuvering very shortly, I think, in probably episode 2 of next season.
Which is good, because that's what this show does best, or what this story does best, and I'm excited to see it. And we're already kind of on this, Theon and Yara showing up. And I was just waiting for Theon to drop trow. Why aren't you going to be the king? Because of this.
I'm not fit to be
like, there
king.
was about 5 Tyrion's like, have you paid for your crimes? Yeah. Like, that's only what I had to do to convince him.
But it's interesting that he didn't say anything about it. Either A, because he's ashamed of it, or B, because he doesn't want that to define him.
Yeah. You want to let the dog in?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dog in.
Yeah, so, now Dany has her first alliance in the 7 Kingdoms.
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see.
And who would have thought in Season 1 or in Book 1 that it would have been the Iron Islands, you know what I mean?
Right. I mean, we didn't even... The only Iron Islander we knew in Season 1 was Theon.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a great twist. Yeah, as long as they just get going. We got to see something with Meereen next week, and hopefully it's a shot of it fading in the distance as Dany and Tyrion stand on the ships and wave to everybody on shore.
Goodbye.
And good riddance.
Thank God.
All right. The North. And I figure we'll kind of go through this step by step, but let's just talk about it overall. I mean, they promised the biggest battle in television history, and I don't know how you quantify that, but I think they delivered.
We're still on the high. I mean, we literally watch the episode, then we get out the tape recorder and do this. So I'm still on the high of the episode.
You kind of have to go back and rewatch Blackwater and this side by side.
I don't know, but I feel like the intensity of this battle was more than the Blackwater battle.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was a lot more at stake, which made it feel that way. And the filmmakers and the cinematographers did a fantastic job of creating chaos with only 500 actors.
Right.
I mean, 500 actors seems like a lot, but when you start putting them together, you're like, okay, let's create this huge battle scene with these people, and let's pretend like Jon is going to die 3 times. And it's an extremely difficult thing to do, but they really pulled it off.
They did. Yeah, and I feel like it's really almost tough to compare this to Blackwater, because Blackwater was such a different battle, where you have the ships and you have the people going on the walls and everything. This, to me, felt much more where the comparison in my mind, I think you have to go back to either the opening scene of Gladiator, or maybe all the way back to Braveheart, which is 20 years ago, believe it or not.
Yeah.
to really get this style of battle at this scope. And, of course, those are both movies, so I'm pulling that off on TV. But it had that kind of medieval horribleness to it, you know.
Right. Well,
yeah. Braveheart, even I think, is more visceral than Gladiator. It's a great scene at the beginning of Gladiator, but just the sense of 2 armies running at each other and...
just decimating everything.
Right. It's really the paradox of warfare in that we have weapons, obviously, today that kill are so much more brutal and can kill so more people, whether you're talking bombs, or drones, or guns, or whatever, but yet the paradox is that warfare is infinitely less brutal than it was. You ask me what war I'd want to fight in? Something like that? Or a modern war?
Right?
I'll take the guns. Because even if you die, I bet you a bullet is a lot faster than what everybody was experiencing in this episode.
Just the mound of people that they created is just...
Yeah.
It was insane.
Right.
I guess I've never seen anything quite like that before.
Yeah, not with the mounds, but yeah, I think Braveheart is probably the closest comparison, especially the moment where Ramsey orders his archers to fire into the crowd on both sides. I mean, that was exactly the Braveheart moment of, but they'll hit our men too, sir. We have reserves,
right.
So yeah, to me that was the closest comparison to it. And that's quite an achievement. I mean, that's 20 years with, and maybe there's a few other movies. Kingdom of Heaven has some good battles in it, but really, that's 20 years since we've seen a battle quite like that on screen. That's really impressive.
And on a small screen, too. I mean, everybody's watching this on a small screen.
Well, we're not.
100 inches.
Yeah, 100 inches.
That's still a lot smaller than a movie theater
screen. That's true, though. I'm guessing, based on our ages, neither one of us was lucky enough to see Braveheart in theaters.
Oh.
Unless you had a lot more permissive parents than I did.
Nope.
Like, what, I was 10, you were 7? Like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Alright, so let's start at the beginning. So we have this kind of parlay with Ramsey, and they just did such a good job of building up the tension to this battle.
Throughout the whole episode, the build up to it. I mean, we talked before the episode... % chance that John dies. You said 0.
Mm-hmm.
And I said 10. And so, but then as we got further in, I was like, I don't know, I'm leaning more towards the 50 percentile at this point even. Because they brought up the Melisandre.
Yes.
Yeah, they brought up the conversation with Melisandre where I'm going to bring you back again. And then we get the whole Beric Dondarrion. You die a little bit more every time she has to bring you back. And just that whole thing made me think of that. And
Melisandre just has a little army of Stark zombies trailing around behind her by the end of the show.
Right? Oh my god.
So I was kind of with you there. But you knew somebody. I think we all knew Ramsey was going to die, but obviously some other Stark was going to die. You're not going to put 3 Starks in a situation like this and have them all come out alive. Sure enough, that's happened.
Right. When we get to it, I want to talk about the car Starks. But
yes.
Yeah.
I really liked the conversation between Sansa and Jon in the tent. You don't know him, and she's 100% right.
Right. And it was don't do it, Jon, and he still did it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but on the other hand, we like Jon because of that attitude.
Right.
Because of the, no, I'm doing what's right, not necessarily what's going to be in the best interest of whoever. But
it almost killed him.
It almost killed him this time, and jeez, I mean, it's gotten him close a few times, and now the next time he does it, he's gonna go Ned Stark's way here.
Yeah,
so
exactly. And then we kind of had the Melisandre conversation, which was another really good one. Don't bring me back.
Right.
And we'll see what they do with it. And I honestly don't mind either way, because on the one hand, it's like we've already seen that, so I don't mind if they don't do it. On the other hand, the idea of Jon being brought back repeatedly and a little less human every time would be a really good twist in this series. Right. They could do that really well. So
that would fit that bittersweet ending that George R. R. Martin promised us. So.
Davos finds out about Shireen before the battle.
Yeah, and it's not really clear that he knew it was Melisandre until the end of the battle, but he just knew that she was burned. I mean...
Well, you put 2 and 2 together. We gotta burn people! I mean, Melisandre's been on that campaign a few times during the series.
True. I suppose. But it could have just as well have been the Boltons after the battle,
That's true.
And nobody's alive to tell the story except for Melisandre, so...
Yeah, and you talked about how well shot this episode was. I just loved that shot of Davos with the smoke and fire behind him. He's kind of on the hillside with Meereen.
Right.
Really, really good shot. So solid directing, and I mean the whole series is well shot.
So now it'll be interesting to see if Melisandre makes it out of this alive, because clearly at the end of the episode we're gunning her down. So
then things start going fast and furious from this point. So we get Rickon brought out.
Right.
Yeah, that was.
Rickon
knew something was going to happen.
Did Rickon ever say a word in the entire series?
I don't think so.
Well, he might have said something off the cuff, but I don't know that he ever had like a line.
Yeah.
You know, like a specific anything. And yet we still felt the pain of him, and I'm sure people are going to write in the comments, oh, season 1 he had blah, 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 blah. But besides, come shaky dog, come. Like, it just never happened. And it just was so heartbreaking. This kid has never said anything significant and means absolutely nothing to us except for that he has the last name of Stark, and we feel that much just suffering because of that. And it was incredibly shot, and I thought they did a marvelous job with that. We all knew Jon was going to do that, even though we didn't want him to. And
see, what I thought was going to happen, speaking of Braveheart, was I thought that it was going to turn out that Ramsey had coated the field in oil or something like that, and was going to shoot a flaming arrow out there the second that Jon catches Rickon. But I suppose that neither one of them would have survived at that point. But yeah, that was great. Then you get the charge, and I just love Jon just taking off his belt, and he throws everything down except his sword. And
he just,
And yeah, the charge is great. And then the Karstarks and the Umbers come in. Any hope that we had for that little theory about
that was so disappointing to me. It really was.
Yeah.
Because I get the Karstarks, that's fine. Because Robb killed their liege lord. That's fine. I get it. But the Umbers.
I think that's us coming out of it as book readers, though.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
it could turn out. Were ever that in the show.
Right. Well, it could turn out to be different than that in the books, even.
Right.
But God, it just felt backstabbing.
That was brutal. And then you get the troops coming with that crush, and that was just.
Yeah.
My gosh.
So once I mean, Ramsey just having no regard for his own troops, showing no mercy to anybody, any life form on the battlefield, killing everybody, and then we get to this little pile in the middle, and they foolishly get all together instead of staying in a line.
Right.
And then we have that whole scene and debacle and everything, and
then Gandalf shows up to save the day. Well, no, actually Littlefinger. So a bit more of a double-edged sword. This is not Lord of the Rings. And
it will come with a price.
Exactly. And that's part of what's great about this series. Not that I would take that as a criticism of Lord of the Rings, because they're writing from two very different philosophies and approaches to storytelling. But that every victory is a double-edged sword.
Right.
And so, they're here to save us, but... Yeah.
Littlefinger's gonna want something.
Littlefinger might not be Ramsey Snow or Ramsey Bolton, but he is sadistic asshole in his own way.
Right.
And he will extract his price.
Yes, he will.
I just loved it then when Jon and Tormund and the Giant just start running after him. I was half waiting for the Giant to just pick him up like a football and just charge at Ramsey.
You know, I must admit I was nervous about that scene because I felt like that's what Ramsey wanted them to do. Mm-hmm. But I don't even know if he even knew that they were coming almost. So,
right.
And then the Giant, he has a name in the book.
Yeah, and I don't remember it.
Two of the same name, like Junga or something like that. Junga. I don't remember. That wasn't it. But it was like, I don't know. Anyways, heartfelt moment between them when they finally burst through. Also, Winterfell must have a better door than that if they can withstand a siege for like forever.
That's true.
Like a 4-inch thick wooden door is not going to do it.
Right.
They must have a steel barrier they forgot to drop. Or...
Yeah, you'd think Winterfell would be ready for Giant. Yeah, Giant-proof your castles, people.
Well, just...
Battering ram.
Ram-proof your castle. Like,
yes.
Good grief.
Yeah, that did not last very long.
But I get it that they had to do that just to make the scene work, which is fine.
Yeah, we didn't need another...
Right, don't need another...
episodes.
Yeah. Episode 5 of Season 7. We're still sieging outside of Winterfell.
Yeah, so that's great. And then Jon and Ramsey Ramsey kills the Giant.
Right.
His last brutal, horrible action.
Right.
Jon and Ramsey, and I thought he was just going to kill him right there.
I thought he was too. You know, I don't know, I'm sure it was artistically significant that we had a bow and arrow as a weapon of choice, and we had a shield as a weapon of choice at that point. I don't know, I'm not really good with metaphors, but I'm sure that it's out there. And
yeah, well, how about just keep your shield up, Jon? Not, now I'm going to put it down and walk 5 more steps forward.
Well, no, but what if he would have aimed low and shot him in the leg?
Well, I guess that's true.
Right?
But
well, it wouldn't be the first time he's been shot in the leg, I guess.
That's true.
Yeah. So I really like that, and I guess I wanted a longer tussle between the two of them, but I understand that it also couldn't happen.
Right. It would have...
I think Ramsey realized that he was beaten at that point.
Ramsey would have lasted 2 seconds in a realistic sword fight.
Have we seen Ramsey with a sword?
No, because that's not who he is. He's sadistic. He's works through manipulation.
Kills from far away?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And so...
Yeah.
Like that scene, and then Sansa makes sure that he gets eaten by his own hounds, which is great.
Yes. Now, I think, a lot of people after Joffrey died, you cheering, but then you also kind of feel like, yeah, but I wanted him to go out harder than that, because he just chokes at his own wedding.
Right. He doesn't even know who killed him.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
I think this was probably a little bit more gratifying to people.
This was, it's a lot more gratifying, which, as a human, it should not be.
Right.
It should still be a saddening thing. But it was so gratifying. I mean, that actor did a phenomenal job. I don't remember his name, but I know...
the guy who plays Ramsey?
Yeah, he plays somebody... my sister-in-law, Ginny, watches a show where he is just the nicest guy ever on the show.
Can't do it.
And so she watched that show, and then she saw this, and she was like, I just can't, he's the nicest guy on this other show.
Yeah.
And so
he did it as Jesus or something.
Right? I mean, it sounds like that's the range of his acting, which is fantastic. But I think he's never going to be able to play the good guy again.
No, you just typecast yourself.
Right. Like the guy from Inglourious Basterds.
I've not seen Inglourious Basterds.
Oh.
I'm not a big Tarantino guy.
Really?
But I need to watch it at some point.
It's one of his better movies.
Yeah. I've been meaning to get to it. Yeah, so I feel like it was satisfying. I feel like, I don't know, I hope the show gets credit for it, because I don't want to say whether or not did they go too far with some of his actions, and did we need to see him loose the dogs on his mother-in-law and the baby? You can debate all that, but the show's gotten so much flack for how sadistic he's been. And I hope they get some credit for giving us a satisfying death with him as well.
Right. I think they did a phenomenal job with it. I'm satisfied with it. I think at the beginning of the season, we all kind of thought that Ramsey was going to die at some point, and we're just kind of waiting for it. And here it is.
Right. Yeah, Ramsey's arc was getting to the point where if they had kept him around, it was going to start feeling like, we've seen this guy, he's built himself up, right. He's risen in the ranks, he got legitimized, he became the control of his house, warden of the north, he's risen as far as he can go. What else are you going to do with him?
Right, unless he's going to beat Cersei in a battle.
Right, he's not going to be the focal point of the end game of the series. Right. And that's another point to keep in mind. is that now we are kind of winnowing down our bad guys, assuming that Euron dies in the not too distant future, which it certainly seems like he's in trouble.
Right.
You don't have a lot of bad guys left. You have
Cersei and
Cersei.
The Mountain.
Who you're predicting is going to die.
The Mountain, for sure.
No, Cersei.
Oh, Cersei, yeah.
Well, that's something from last week we should mention, is that was significant that they outlawed trial by combat.
That was the worst scene. Not the worst scene. It was just so heartbreaking for Cersei to watch. The sun is gone. Mm-hmm. And she's just lost everything at this point. Which makes me concerned. Well, which makes me think she's going to die because people with nothing to lose do crazy stuff.
Yes.
And in the book, she's projected as crazy from the moment that Joffrey dies.
Yes.
And they're doing it a little bit later here, but I think, I don't know.
Cersei, for all of her faults, which are many, is a good mother.
Right.
In her own twisted way, she is a good mother, and now she's lost Joffrey, girl, whose name I don't remember, starts with an M. Myrma.
That's not right.
That's not right.
The daughter that we saw in 3 episodes total. Yep.
Exactly. And effectively, she's lost Tywin at this point.
Right.
So what else does she have to live for?
Well, and that's part of the prophecy, is that you'll lose all of your children.
Mm-hmm.
And although Tywin's not dead, certainly lost him.
Time to make another baby with Jaime. Ooh. Or not. Yeah, so maybe we're being hard on last week. I don't know. It was mainly the Meereen stuff and the fact that there was no Bran, and it was a little bit of a filler episode.
Yeah,
I don't know. There was still some good stuff in it.
I guess.
But this was a top 5 episode for the series. I mean, just...
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not an action guy because so often, and it's the case with so many superheroes movies today where it's just action for the sake of action and there's no emotion behind it. And what makes this feel different is ultimately not that it was well shot, though it was. Not that it's good choreography with the fighting, but it was. But it's that you have built this up so much and you care about what's going on. And they did it so effectively. Right. And that's what made it a great...
They made a guy getting trampled and buried in bodies seem like the most dramatic thing ever, when it's a guy like... I mean, there's probably 100 other people on an actual battlefield like that doing the exact same thing, but we just felt so emotional. I mean, it was just like...
Well, and they made a risky move there with the editing, I felt like, but a good one, where there was about 30 seconds where it's just quick cuts and flashes and you can't tell what's going on, but it was like, this is exactly what John's experiencing right then.
Right. He has absolutely no idea what's going on. He's getting stepped on. He sees things. He just doesn't.
Exactly. So I love this episode. Best one of the season. But still no Bran. And what's in the tower, everyone? If you're a show reader or show watcher only, and you haven't read theories on the internet, I'll be curious if any of you have figured it out, because I think that you could, but there's certainly less hints in the show than there are in the books.
On purpose.
On purpose. But yeah, I feel like with the books, if you've read them a few times, you should have a good idea, even if you haven't read theories online. With the show, if you figured it out as a show watcher, what's going on in that tower, you're doing really well. Yeah. So I would imagine that's going to be next week.
I think that'll be next week. I think either Cersei dies next week, or they're going to draw her crazy psychopath thing out just a touch, and then she'll die. Mm-hmm. I think their next week is also going to be one other major death for book readers. It is the epilogue to book 5.
Yep, I agree.
That's going to be next week too.
Yep.
Which makes me think that Cersei's is going to be drawn out just a touch more.
Yeah, if that does happen, I have a hard time seeing Cersei die next episode.
Yes.
So, yeah. Though I got to think something's going to happen with the Hound and the Mountain next week.
don't know.
But we didn't watch any previews, so we're in the dark. And
2 major character deaths next week. That's my prediction.
Right. Yeah. I intentionally, I don't know if you wanted to watch the preview. I'd like not at this point because we're in the dark. I want to see it
at home, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a big spoiler phobe or anything, but at the same time, I don't like trailers because trailers are not usually put together by the creative team. They're put together by a marketing department. And
right.
so
they show some things that you probably should not have shown.
Exactly.
Right?
So I'd rather have the story presented to be the way the storyteller wants. If I get spoiled, it's not the end of the world.
Right,
but,
exactly.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on this one? Great episode.
Fantastic episode. I don't think they're going to top it next week, but I think next week is also going to be...
Oh, it's typical episode 9, episode 10.
But, yeah, but more past season 4 and beyond, episode 9 and 10. I would say before season 4, we had a different sequence of events.
Yeah, but, I think episode 9 has traditionally been the big one.
Yes.
And then episode 10 is going to be good, but more wrap-up and setup.
Yes.
Which I'm perfectly fine with that formula. That works well.
Right.
So maybe next year, episode 6 will be the big one, because we're only getting 7.
Is it 7 and then 6?
7 and... I don't think they have a number on season 8.
I heard 13 total.
Could be.
So...
Could be. There's been a few different numbers floating around. Hopefully... I'm not going to hope for more, because they know what they're doing. I don't want them to artificially draw it out. I just hope they have enough to do what they want to do.
Right. I'm glad that they cut it down, realizing that if they want to do what they need to do and do whatever, that they need to cut it down, which is fine.
Exactly. I mean, for all of the many, many, many criticisms you could level at Lost, one of the best things that did happen to that show was when they were able to cut those last few seasons down to a more manageable episode count.
Yes.
Because you stopped getting...
Well, and then they were given, they said, we're doing 6 seasons on season 4.
Exactly.
And so they had 2 seasons to wrap up, that you had that much time.
Didn't, but their hearts were in the right place.
We'll talk about Lost a different episode.
Alrighty. Alright, so that's it for now. I'm Ben DeBono.
I'm Ben Kirkwald.
We'll be back with you for one more next week.
Yes.
Yep, goodbye.